Hey chatters, I'm Joe, the CEO of Synaptic Labs. Over here, we've trained thousands of professionals on how to use AI responsibly and practically. We're also the creators of the Professor Synapse prompt, which has over 100,000 uses in the GPT store. Today, I'm going to be going over the basic tools you can use for pretty much any generative AI provider. Some might have some of these, some might not, but generally this is the tool set you're going to have access to no matter who you're deciding to use, whether that's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Mistral, whatever it might be. We're not going to actually be going through the use of each tool. We're going to be doing that in a future video so I can show you by each provider how to use them. But for now, I just want to center you around what's the tool set you're going to have to use pretty much no matter what you're using. Let's get into it. First up is the canvas. This might be called something different depending on the provider you use. For example, Claude calls them artifacts, but the idea is the same across all the providers. It gives you a separate workspace in which to make edits on documents. Instead of you just talking right there with the generative AI model, instead you're going to have a separate window that pops up where it's going to put all that text or whatever you're doing in there. And then you'll have options like, hey, I want to download this, or maybe just edit this little part. Maybe you can live edit in there. Maybe you can copy it to Google Docs if you're using Gemini. Maybe you have buttons that tell you to shorten it or make this more professional. Stuff like that. It's just a separate workspace, so whatever document you're working on, it's right there instead of you having this really long conversation where it's outputting the same document with your edits every single time, and you have no way to really control it manually. Second, we have image generation. Not all providers give you this right inside their platform. Right now, Google's Gemini and ChatGPT do, but not everyone does. The idea, though, is instead of having to go out and purchase maybe like a subscription to Midjourney, you can create all of your images in the platform itself just by giving it some text, some sort of prompt around what you want. You can also identify the aspect ratio typically with these models. So do you want it a portrait form, a square, widescreen? And now many of these platforms actually allow you to edit just through text as well. So it might come back with an image, you might not quite like all of it, maybe something's weird off in the corner here, or it misspelled a word as AI tends to do. And so you can just feed it that same image or just in that conversation and just be like, hey, can you remove this? Or sometimes you can even highlight stuff and be like, can you change whatever this is? Third is we have web search. Pretty much every provider has this now. And more or less, it's a generative AI powered web search. So normally, if you were to Google something, you'd get your first page of 20 or so results, and then you decide and click through each of them and read them. So now instead of you doing that, the AI is doing that for you. So it'll do a search, it's going to return whatever the top web pages are based on the query it had. It's going to go read all those web pages, and it's going to come back to you with its response based on what it's read, as well as generally the actual citation. So you can follow up and actually go to the website that it pulled it from, / you can see, oh, was this all from Reddit? Maybe I need to check these sources. Fourth, we have file creation. This is a lesser known one, but pretty much every single one of these generative AI providers can now run some sort of arbitrary code inside of the platform itself. And what that means is that it can actually create documents in pretty much whatever format you want. So for example, you could ask it to create a PowerPoint for you. It's probably not going to be very good, but it should be able to do that. If you want it to convert something into a markdown file, if you want to take whatever text that you've created inside of the platform and turn it into a Word document, it should be able to convert it into a Word document. You can also create a CSV file or some sort of spreadsheet, whatever it might be. You can also convert one thing to another. So for example, if you have maybe a PDF and you want to turn that into a Word doc, in most cases, as long as that PDF was converted from a Word doc originally, it can actually do that for you. It can take a PDF, run it through some sort of code process, and return the text for you in a Word doc or whatever it might be. Again, this is not going to be as accessible or useful across platforms. For example, Google can't really do this because they want to keep you in the Google ecosystem. So what that means is that you can very easily convert things into a Google spreadsheet or a Google Doc, but you're going to have a harder time converting things to other formats that aren't Google specific. A lot of platforms are starting to get behind this bandwagon as well, especially for slide decks. It's not perfect, but for example, Claude, you can ask it to create a full PowerPoint for you, and it can do that. Similarly, in ChatGPT's agent mode, you can do the same thing. We're starting to see this pick up in terms of the different file formats. It's not perfect, but again, little known fact, just ask it to create you some different file format and it should be able to do that. Fifth, we have data analysis. This is another little known one that I feel like people don't use nearly as much as they probably should. You don't really need to be a data scientist anymore to run analyses. As long as you understand the analysis you want to run, right now, most of these providers, again, can just run arbitrary code inside of the platform. So what that means is if you have some sort of Python script, which runs a regression analysis based on a spreadsheet that you have, you don't have to go into R or some other programming language to run that analysis. Now you just tell it, run a regression on this data, you give it the spreadsheet, and it can run that. And more than run it, it can actually manipulate the data, clean the data, and even create charts for you. It's pretty ridiculous what these things can do now. You might be somewhat limited based on the platform you're using, but pretty much all of them again now can run some sort of data analysis as long as it's not super complicated. And of course, you always want to check what it's doing in the data and what it ran in the charts to make sure it makes sense, but it's pretty crazy what you can do now. Last on our list, we have deep research. Deep research is a form of web search, but it just goes much, well, deeper. Instead of just looking at, for example, when you Google something, those first 10 or 20 results, this does a full web crawl and read. It's going to send out multiple agents. You've given it some sort of research question. It's going to break that research question into multiple questions, and then it's going to go crawl the web pretty comprehensively for the answers, consolidating the information as it goes, and then coming back to you with a well-cited report with the comprehensive sources that it actually looked at. Typically, you can even see what it's researching, the questions that it had, all that kind of stuff in the process. This takes quite a bit of time to run, so you don't always want to run it for something that you just need a simple answer for. But if you're really looking to go deep into a topic and have it return to you a digestible report, this is definitely the way to go. That's it for our basic tools. Again, pretty much every single provider is going to have some version of these 6 tools. They might be missing one or doesn't do all the things that other ones can do, but generally you can expect these 6. Some sort of canvas to do your working and editing in with the LLM, image generation, so you can actually create images and edit them through text, web search to look at the web, return the sources, and get your answer based on those sources, creating different file types in terms of whatever you need, data analysis, so taking some spreadsheet or whatever, running an analysis on it, manipulating that information, and creating charts, and then deep research, web search on steroids, where it's going to go very deep into a topic, find all the sources that it possibly can, and return a well-cited report for you. In future videos, we're going to be going through how to actually use these for each provider, but for now, I would just go into whatever provider that you're comfortable using and see if you can find and use each of these tools, figure out what works for you, what doesn't, where you're getting stuck, and then obviously in future videos, we'll be going over these in more detail. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for listening.